There you go. Great. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm not sure about you, but I think we've had a number of events today that seem like one of those Mercury retrogrades where lots of things are kind of a little wonky. So I think that this is going to be a good reset. Very excited to have Ginger with us, and Ginger has amazing amounts of experience in this area of communication and strategy, you know, putting together, and based on conversations, just both maybe in your structured group interviews and also just on our calls, I've heard lots of kind of interest in the issue of communication, and so this is a bit of a reset. You know, I think this is probably something we could have done earlier on, but now we're doing it, and going to spend some time with you today talking about strategic communications that I believe is going to be helpful for you in your work as an ACH community. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Ginger.
Great, great. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. And for those who are both able to see me, I am on video. So if you want to see a moving, talking, live, fleshy head, I'm here. For those of you who can't or listening to the recording, it's great to be part of things, and that you'll be seeing slides that will really be able to further what I am able to share with you verbally. So I want to quickly do some introductions for those who actually are on the call with us. If you could take yourselves off of mute for a second, and I want to capture who is with us. So is there anybody here from LA, USC yet? If so, speak up. You're on mute. If you're saying something and I can't hear you, you're on mute.
No, they are not.
Okay, great. Anybody from San Gabriel?
Nope, don't see them.
Nope. Okay, Humboldt?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, this is Patty Torres from Humboldt.
Great, hi Patty. Lake County? Not yet?
Yep, nope.
Okay, Napa? Not yet?
Well, Eva is on. Eva Weinstein, I see her name, but somebody just went into chat. So yes, so Eva is on, yes.
Great. Okay, from Napa, fantastic.
Yes.
West Sacramento.
Seeing anyone there?
Nope, okay. Fresno. Long Beach.
Hi, this is Tiffany Cantrell-Warren.
Hi, Tiffany. I can see you. Nice to see you. Great. And then Riverside. So who's G-Town? Can you see that name, Sue?
Yes, I can. I'm not sure. Okay. And I think Christy, who's on here, is from Sacramento. You know, she's from that ACH. I don't know, Christy, if you can hear me, but I believe she's from Sacramento.
Okay.
That ACH.
And then, great. Eva says, yeah, okay, great. And then, so we'll figure out who G-Town is at some point. Great. And we know that some people will come back on the line. I'm going to be coming back to this spreadsheet, so that's why I'm filling this out now. But great. So I'll pop back over to my thing over here. Full screen mode. Well, so welcome everyone. So just so people know a little bit more about me, I have my own consulting practice that supports game-changing social and environmental justice initiatives, and I definitely place catchy firmly within the type of work that I do. And I've had great experience working with Sue, working with ACHs in Vermont, and then also working on overall PHIL, the Population Health Innovation Lab's overall strategies and communication work. So I know the work well, and I have a really strong working relationship with Sue, so it's really fun to be engaged in this type of work with you all too. As Sue mentioned, I do both strategic planning and strategic communications, and I never, these circles probably should all be overlapping because never do I look at them in isolation. So what you're hearing when I'm talking about communications today is really informed by a larger overall strategic communication, or informed by a strategic plan, which I recognize you all don't have all in the same, apples to apples versions of what plans might look like, but undoubtedly the fact that you all have even gathered as individual ACHs and then together, you all have a shared strategic direction and goal. And so I'm gonna be speaking to you in light of that shared direction that you're moving. So my goals for us today are to, one, learn why to step back and ask the bigger questions before you start even writing your communication materials, much less kind of planning out a bigger strategic plan for your communications. I think it's often that we sit down and we just say, oh, I got to get this thing out. I got to tell somebody something. And that we really got to take a few steps back in order to do that more effectively and to set yourself up for success for a long-term process. With that, I'm going to provide a framework for assessing your communication needs. It's a tool that will also, you'll be able to use at your desks moving forward. And with that, my goal is to inspire you to be more intentional, to be more direct in what you're doing, and to think long-term for greater impact. Just so you know, while for me, I'm going to be listening and learning to support tailoring talking points for the group. So I know that you all have a set of kind of general talking points that Sue has circulated, but they haven't really been refined to be as supportive as they can be for you all. So I'm going to be listening to be able to help tailor those for the larger, for all of your sites, kind of as a group. And that then part of the work that I will be doing with you all is that I'll be doing one-on-one meetings with each of you all, or probably Sue will be joining me too. So 2-on-1, or however many are in your group who want to join that, to be able to help advance your needs within your site specifically. So those are our goals. And then let me actually just go back quickly to the agenda. So I'm going to move now into talking through the framework that I mentioned, which are the 6 key elements of strategic communications. Then we're going to actually put them into practice during this meeting itself. Often things like this are delivered, you just get a bunch of information and then you go off to your next meeting. We've actually designed to do some of the initial seeding of this during this meeting itself, so that when you walk away from today, you already have some of these tools practiced, some of your neurological framing is beginning to begin in your brain to be able to support you to do this back at your desks. And then we're going to be sharing with each other as a large group so that we can be learning across what some of the shared needs and challenges are. And that will allow you all to, one, potentially be kind of co-informing one another, and for also for me and Sue to be listening to how to be able to meet those needs moving forward. So any questions on the agenda?
Are we muted? No. So Ginger, just so you know, so Gina Roberson joined, and she's from Sacramento as well.
Great, wonderful. Hi, Gina. Great. Okay, I'll add that to my sheet when we get there. Okay, so no questions on the agenda. We can dive in. Okay, all right. So, you know, we all are doing the hard work we have our jobs, and we're all dedicated to actually doing quite mission-driven work, and we are trying to make impact. Often, we are not as intentional as we need to be. I mean, we're all going to be making an impact, but is it the kind of impact that you want to be making? And so my job today is for us to be thinking as intentionally as possible about what you're trying to do. More often than not, we kind of know where we're going. We've got this kind of target and understanding, but we're kind of throwing lots of darts or arrows at it in hopes that we get it right at some point. This is not going to serve us as well, both for efficiency, for sustainability, and for overall impact. What we're wanting to really do is this. We're wanting to really understand what is it that we're trying to achieve. We're trying to kind of prioritize what those things are. And then we're trying to really direct our action to be able to get that. And so this is way more common. This is way more effective. So with that in mind, I want to walk you through what I call the 6 key elements of strategic communications. This is really going to skim the surface of lots of things that go into thinking about a bigger strategic communications plan. But if you can get started on these, you are miles ahead of most folks who are sitting down thinking about communications unless they have been able to engage a communication strategy firm. And you don't need to have one if you can be thinking about these things internally first. All right, so jumping in. This is a quick synopsis of the 6, but we're going to go through each of them with more depth. But first is to see the big picture. The second is to clarify your audiences. The third is to get really clear about what you need or want from them. Often that's really hard. The fourth is then to empathize with your audience. The fifth is then to identify the best format and frequency based on what you know, based on 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then it's when you actually start to tailor your messaging, and then you review that and revise that based on all of these other pieces that you're thinking about. People usually jump to 6. They hope to just kind of be able to dive in with something they've got. And yet, 1 through 5 are the essential steps before you even start to work on things. So let's start with 1. This is seeing the bigger picture. What are you trying to accomplish? I'm not even talking specifically about communication goals. I'm talking about, for example, your ACHs. You're wanting to change the way that work is done. You're wanting to create a new set of inquiry skills for different groups of people across your ecosystem. And you're really trying to get to a very different place about how you work together, problem solve, and ultimately are able to create better health impacts within your community. So, here you are today, and it may be that you've already started, you've already gone down the pathway a little bit, but you've still got a long ways to go before you get there. Well, so 1 is to get clear about, well, what is that? This, you'd want to know, like, that's the top of a specific mountain, not just any old mountain. What mountain is that? And why that one, right? You want to get really clear about what is driving you and what is your end goal. And that then along this pathway, there are going to be milestones. And so, of course, it's not going to be helpful to just think, well, again, and I realize that I suspect that I'm preaching to the choir. All of you all have heard of milestones before, but I'm asking you to take a step back to help inform how you think about your communications as well, because you have these milestones along the way, which may be certain key decisions that have to be made. Things are either moving up a hierarchical chain of decision making. You might need policy changes. There are these different milestones along this pathway, and each of them actually might require a different type of communication strategy. There may be a thread that runs all along through it, but you may need something specific to get you from here to here, and then from here to here, and from here to here. So you're going to be thinking about what are your major milestones and how can your communications help to serve you to get to each of those. Okay, so thinking about that, we could have a whole session and work for months on developing a strategic plan. So I'm going to move quickly on, assuming that you have a general understanding of what these things are, and that I encourage you to refine them if you don't, because this is the foundation for any kind of strategic communications planning that you would do. All right, so once you know both your long-term goal as well as those milestones, you've got to get really clear about who you're talking to. As I mentioned before, more often than not, you're kind of hoping that you talk to some of the right people along the way, but that you're really wanting to think about how is change going to happen in your system, right? Who is it that you need to change? Who needs to be educated? Who needs to be convinced in some cases? who needs to start doing things differently in order for that next milestone to be, for you to achieve that next milestone, for you to then be able to move towards the next one. With that in mind, you've got to really focus because you have limited time, you have limited energy, and you've got to get really clear about what's the biggest bang for your buck. Some of that, your buck is in the form of money, some of your bang is in the form of time, some of it is form of emotional energy that it takes to do things. Get really clear about who you really need to be moving first. And with that in mind, I know enough about what you all are doing that in a lot of cases you're trying to move 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different partners in your world simultaneously. And so this is not to suggest that you really only have one priority, but I suspect there's either a harder nut to crack or there's something that's kind of an overarching either group of people or something that you might benefit from targeting some of your first actions towards. But regardless, I recognize that you're going to have multiples of these, and therefore you may be thinking about multiple bullseyes rather than thinking, well, all of my important people all just belong in the middle, because that means that you're then trying to use one arrow to meet a lot of different people's needs. You instead want to have separate bullseyes and separate arrows, separate ways that you're working with different groups of people if they're different. And that's going to make more sense as we move through these. With that in mind, and kind of related to that, you may need to have more than one version of your communications materials based on the fact that you're working with different groups of people. So if you're working with somebody in your ecosystem that's really focused on, maternal and child health, and that somebody else is actually really interested in diabetes, it's not to say that there's not some kind of overlap there, but that different things are going to be driving them in different ways. They may also have different decision-making structures, that you may benefit from actually having different types of communication materials in order to move those different audiences. It doesn't mean that you have to have a whole new, it could be that things are tailored. It doesn't mean that 100% of that information is different, but that if you don't actually think about the distinction between those different audiences, it's going to be a lot more diluted in the way that you're doing your work. It's going to look more like this. Let's hope we meet everybody's needs versus like this. So you think about 6 different bullseyes if you have 6 different audiences. And that then this last point, you may have different audiences for different milestones. So in your first few steps along that pathway, you may be working with a set of people that are kind of co-working a problem together, but that when you get to maybe step 3, 4, or 5, you may be working at a policy level. Who knows exactly what you're doing. You're working to shift budgets. That is going to likely be a different group of people, and so at that point, you're going to shift some of your communication strategy to be able to serve that new set of people. All right, number 3, you've got to get clear about what you need. This is, I find fascinating. I've been working with groups of people on communications work for a couple decades now, and this is always the hardest part. People usually think that if, I have something to share, I should share it. I disagree. You want to never share information just for information's sake. You need to understand why you think they need that information and how you think that information will advance their work and what you're asking them to do with that information. Often we think, they just need to know this, and so hopefully it'll kind of sit in their brain and it'll inform them and maybe influence them one day. No, you want to get really clear about, I am telling you X because I hope that you will do Y. Agreed that sometimes you're going to be a little less direct if it's somewhat of a sensitive topic or whatnot. That there's certainly nuances to all of this, but you've got to at least be able to be clear exactly what you want to do with that information or how you are assuming it's going to influence their work before you're just sharing for sharing's sake, because that then helps to shape what you share and how you share it. And often when people say they want to share information just for information's sake, the root of that is that what they're wanting to do is establish trust. They may be wanting to create credibility. Maybe there's that transparency is a value. And those things are really important. So get clear about, we want to establish trust by creating consistent communications in order to keep everybody in the loop about each step that we're doing. And so that if you have any questions about the steps that we're taking or the assumptions that we're making, that you can ask us about them. That's a really different form of communicating than it is just to say, we're just gonna send you lots of information and hope that trust is built. You can, I suggest being as deliberate and as direct about what you're trying to do, and so that your communications invite people to meet you where you're wanting them to go. And that sometimes that's a very specific action. It's going to be, we need you to do X in the next week. In other cases, you're preparing them for action that will be taking place in the future. Again, the clearer you can be, the better. And this is directing your audience's action. If you don't ask for anything, you're not going to get anything. And this is often what will happen, is that we assume that if we say, this is happening, that'll automatically create a condition in the other person's brain that then they know what to do with that information. We all know probably in all our interpersonal relationships that that's not how it works. It also doesn't work professionally. So we got to get really clear about what you want to ask for and ask for it directly. If your ask is shy, the action in response will be shy too. If your ask is unclear, the action will be unclear. So again, it's your job to get clear about what you need and then to communicate that need. Otherwise, it's not going to be assumed that anybody knows. Again, I think this is some of the hardest, this is the hardest part here. People get really tripped up on this. All right, so ideally, once you've identified what they need, and you may need to kind of move in between 3, getting clear, and 4, to empathize in order to really assure that clarity. You want to put yourself in your audience's shoes. So it's easy to often kind of go from like, well, what would work for me is X. We are all very different. And also if we're working with different types of stakeholder groups, they are operating in different decision-making structures. They're operating in different communication sharing structures. They have different amounts of time. They have different amounts of interest, motivation, all of these kinds of things. And so the only way you can get closer to being able to meet them where they're at is to actually really put yourself in your target audience's shoes. And I will literally actually do the equivalent of like a guided meditation with myself or with my clients and ask them to close their eyes and imagine that they're a real person within that target audience, sitting at their desk, being barraged with information. What kind of emails are they getting through there? Who's calling them on the phone? How many meetings did they go to that day? What else is happening with them? How are they juggling this decision next to another decision? We often think in tunnel vision, both coming from our own ideas and then imagining that once they receive that communication, that nothing else is happening around them. And yet we all know that is not true. So the clearer you can get in putting yourself in these different people's shoes. So first you'd put yourself in, one stakeholder's shoes. Next time you'd put it in the next, and you do it at least 3 times. So you really get clear about what is influencing these folks when they're receiving this information. So you're thinking about what motivates them, how are they going to be receptive to this information. In some cases, you all are trying to change how people do things. Are they going to be reluctant about some initial strategies that you're sharing with them? Are they thinking, this is going to cost too much. This is going to take too much time. You want to jump into the future with them when they're receiving that and imagine how can you meet those concerns in your communications rather than them getting something and knowing that you've just triggered all of their buttons for them to think, this isn't interesting, or this will never work, or you've just shamed or guilted me. I haven't been motivated by something that motivates me. Instead, I'm feeling bad, right? So you're wanting to really think about what's going to motivate them, how are they going to be most receptive, and how to avoid or to actually, speak to the things that they might be reluctant about. All right, take a second to look at this cartoon. I'll be quiet so you can read it. So I love this cartoon because, as we all know, we have our phones constantly, within a nanosecond's reach. We can barely read, scrolling on our phone. We spend nearly no time absorbing information. So you want to be thinking about, when you send communications of any form, about how much time people have. And then I suggest that you quarter it, you half it, you quarter it, and in some cases you even 1/100th it, because you want to say a lot and they don't have the bandwidth anymore to do it. So if you want, you have to be really clear, really direct, and really efficient about what you're doing. Also, communication style. I'll give you a second to look at this cartoon as well. So this is really common too, that there's this sense of, oh, what I think needs to be shared is just the right amount. And my executive summary, for example, is 10 pages. This is, different people have different appetites and capacity to be able to take in information. But more often than not, even the things that you will summarize will still not be summary enough. Based on who you're speaking with. So figuring out what their desired communication style is, or the depth that they are able to tolerate or they have appetite for, will really help you be able to streamline your communications to be more effective. All right, so this, you'll get all of these slides after our time together. So I don't expect you to dive into this fully right now. But then the next thing, right? So at this point, you have identified who your audience is. You have gotten clear about what you're looking for from them. And you have better understood what their motivations are, and what will move them to take the action that you're wishing them to take. This is when then you're thinking about your format and your frequency. You're going to be you have a handful of different types of ways you're going to be communicating with people. One is based on size. In some cases, you're going to be speaking to smaller audiences, smaller working groups. In other cases, you're going to be trying, you might be sending out the equivalent of a newsletter type of thing, 20, 30, 50, 100 people or more. And that's going to change both the format and potentially the frequency for how you're engaging with people. Personalization. So in some cases, this is where it really comes down to being clear about your audience. Is personalization not important at all? Well, if that's the case, you're probably you're probably sharing information more just for information's sake. So just be thoughtful about that. You're likely going to be a little further to the middle, if not further to the right. If you imagine real, your communications, you may be thinking immediately as I'm talking to you about mass communications or, groups of people, but just think about how change is made. Often you might be working with a group of people, particularly across stakeholder audiences, 2 or 3 people from different departments of organizations across a community. But really, the way that if some particular person kind of sitting at a certain desk within that ecosystem is supportive of an idea, that he, she, or they are very influential in how that impacts the rest of the system, you may also be reaching out to them personally. You may be asking them to have lunch. That is part of a strategic communications strategy. You might be sending them personalized emails while you're also working with this working group, right? So you're thinking about the level of personalization in order to be able to have the impact that you're looking for. it is completely proven that the more personalized your communications, the more effective they are. So you're going to be wanting to be thinking about this. And this is what I've already spoken about some about your stakeholder groups. You want to personalize that to what their specific needs are. All right, process. So you may be working on the equivalent of a one-way communication. So you are basically not expecting any significant response. For example, if it's a trust building one that is more of a kind of a regular frequency that is meant to just keep people up to date, the action is that you're prepping them for future action. That's one way, and that may be it's a pretty there are certain communication formats that are good for that. You know, email is certainly good. Email goes out, etc. Versus something, the process is actually a working group process. And so Zoom, we're on a Zoom call right now, Google Docs, things that will actually serve you to facilitate working together. That format is going to be different than one that is more of a one-way communication channel. And then frequency, right? So sporadic, it's going to range from occasionally you're going to need to contact somebody to someplace in the middle where maybe a working group, you know, the frequency is once a week or once a month, or you're sending out a newsletter, to a drumbeat. And a drumbeat, imagine that kind of if it were a campaign, you might be, could move even to a social media campaign idea where you are tweeting every day about something. You're also doing Instagram. You're figuring out how can you create a momentum in order to get something done. And that frequency may then actually be higher at that point. So this, just to remind you all, connects kind of directly, although the language is not in the same way, to this set of communication tools that Sue and all of you all have been kind of self-facilitating to have as a resource. These have helped to serve different audience sizes, to meet different format needs. So this is a really great tool, or set of resources to think about how these can then help to meet your communication needs. And that because I'm going to be able to work with you all one-on-one moving forward for a couple of hours, that we can look at some of these, and if you have questions about how to, which ones might be the best fit for what it is that you're trying to achieve. Let me get back to this. So let me pause there. Are there any questions yet before I dive into the last one? I don't think I can see, Sue, if somebody is sending.
Okay, go. I don't, on the chat, I don't see any questions, because you guys can put something in on the chat.
Okay.
I think, Ginger, I just wanted to reiterate what you were just sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think people are trying to figure out different communication there's the messages, but also the different tools. And so I think really thinking about what you're trying to do and which tool is the best tool to use is a really important message, I think, to think about.
Yeah, yep. And the reason why I'm not diving into that specifically is that each situation is gonna, it would be difficult for me to do that well and talk through enough of them in a short period of time for that to all make a lot of sense. What I encourage, these are the types of questions you need to be thinking about. And then these are, by looking at these questions and then looking at the tools, and potentially, Sue, you and I could actually look at that Google Doc after today and maybe even kind of code some of it for these types of areas. And
right.
so that,
that would be
kind of help to meet these. And that then, of course, when it comes to tools, there's the whole kind of technological learning curve. And so I hesitate to actually promote one tool over another if an organization actually has some competency in a certain tool that works well for them, then that is often the one I recommend that they continue to use, because then you're not trying to learn a whole new tool. So I am reluctant to promote one over another until I learn more about what the organization is already dealing with. So that's why I also don't want to go through and kind of accidentally suggest one is better than another.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so then the last one is, right, now, okay, so you haven't even written anything yet. You haven't done anything yet. It's not until now that you want to start thinking about what is this going to actually look like? You can put pen to paper or finger to keypad, or you tailor what you already have in order to meet that specific audience needs, to understand what you want. You know what you want from them. You know what you're competing with in relationship to all of the other information they're getting. And that it's only then that you are in a good position to then actually advance your communications work. So this is when you're going to be thinking about, you're going to tailor in some cases you would be building something from scratch, writing something from scratch. Often you will have something that you're already using and that you'll tailor or kind of adapt it to be able to share externally or share with a working group. And that then you won't just write it and be done with it. Once you look at it, you'll think, did you select the best format? Are they moved to actually act? Do they actually know what to do? Are they motivated to do it? Do they have the information they need to take that action? Do they know what to do? Often people aren't even explicit about what you want them to do, particularly if it's something kind of in the future. Does it pass the skim test? Remember, just think about how you look at your email. You open it up, you're like, oh, I don't have time for that, I'll come back to it. But could they grok anything quickly? Similarly, from a really nicely designed PDF of some sort, if it's 20 pages long, you can assume that they're going to skim it first before they dive into it. So does it pass the skim test? Does it need an intro page? Does it need what does it need in order for it to be more easily digested? And if it doesn't do these things, you got to review and revise it. And that it's true, no doubt, that what you're hearing likely is, for some of you all, depending upon how you all do your communications, is more effort than you have used in the past. What I would say, though, is that a little bit of effort goes a long way. And also, these are muscles that can be developed quite quickly, so that once you've kind of forced yourself to move through this line of thinking a couple of times, it will be quite easy for you to then apply it quickly moving forward. And you'll always be thinking, wait, let me put myself in their shoes. What would be most helpful for them? Wait, I know they're going to be reluctant about this. Let me actually speak to that. It'll be quick right now, while you're taking a step back and seeing all these pieces. It's true, it's a lot to think about, but it will become quick and second nature. And that these are not things just to relegate if you have a communications department. It's not just to hope that they're doing this, because actually all of you, of what I am aware of, and just how work works, you guys are communicating constantly. So this is not just applicable to ACH development. This is applicable to anything and everything that you're doing. All of you all are in positions to be, part of your jobs is to inform, educate, and inspire people to act, change behavior, et cetera, in certain ways. This pertains to all of that. All right, so a quick recap. You're going to look at the bigger picture, clarify your audiences, get really clear about what you need or how you're, what you want people to do. Empathize, put yourself in the shoes of your audiences, identify the best format and frequency, and then tailor, review, and revise. So with that, I'm going to actually have you all pull up that Word document that Sue sent you this morning. So I want to make sure that everybody has that pulled up, and please use the chat function to say that you have it pulled up. And I want to make sure that at least 75% of everybody, ideally 100%, have that pulled up. Sue, can you see chat? I can't see the chat function for some reason.
I am. I've heard from people, yes, so Napa, Sacramento, Long Beach, they have it.
Great. Who are we missing? Who needs to still pull it up?
Patty's got it, so she's good. G-Town, and G-Town, can you tell me where you're from? I'm not recognizing the that's on here, but they've got it pulled up too. So
great.
Yeah, from Sacramento. Oh, great! Yay,
great.
An intern.
Great.
Good.
Fantastic. Okay, good. So it sounds like almost everyone, if not everyone. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is I'll pull up my Word document version so you can see it a little better. All right, so this should all look familiar. It should look like steps 1 through 6. And this is a tool that I want to practice with today, and that I actually encourage you to use frequently, particularly in the next couple of weeks, couple of months, as you are thinking more thoughtfully and more intentionally about your communications work, to start practicing this, and that to share this tool with your collaborators as well. So here, you want to identify what are you trying to accomplish, and note that you will likely have multiple pages of something like this, because what you're trying to accomplish may be that end goal. It is also a set of those milestones. If you imagine even thinking about one project that needs to be completed in the next 10 days that require a means by which that you are sharing that, and that there's an action that needs to take, right? So this can be at various scales. So for today, in a minute, I'm actually going to have you all work on this quietly. If you happen to be in the same office together, that's fabulous, and work together on it. But if you're not, don't worry. I want you to work on it in front of your computer right now, and you're going to be reporting back about it. So you gotta use the, I encourage you to use this time well. So think about something you're trying to accomplish. And I think for this, I encourage you to think about kind of a next big milestone, not the holy grail that's probably a year or 2 out, but instead kind of something that's within the next month to 3 months of something you're trying to accomplish, one of those milestones. Then I want you to think about who your audiences are and break them down and prioritize. Don't get too stuck on this, in the sense that I'd like for you to move through this quickly, kind of as like a quick prototyping version of just practicing exercising these muscles a little bit today. That go ahead, if you just can't figure out who your priority audience is because you actually have 5 main audiences, well then put 5 audiences in here. That's fine. But I encourage you after today to really be thinking about, is there a harder nut to crack, or is there a first step? Is there a priority audience? Ideally, that's where you are really able to nail it. Then for the exercise today, if you have a priority audience, then stick with this. You may have, though, more written in here. Stick with your priority audience, and then get clear about what you need them to do. And this is your own sheet. I'm not going to be looking at it. So take as many notes as you want on here, write however you want, bullet points, whatever, full sentences, I don't care. Thinking about what you want them to do. And in some cases, they might not need to do something immediately, but you want them to feel something. You want them to feel trust. You want them to feel included. You want them to feel that the process is transparent. There could be a handful of the ways that you want them to feel. Then think about what is motivating them, why they would be receptive, what they potentially would be reluctant about, how they like to receive information, How much time do they have? So think about, put yourselves in their shoes, and I literally encourage you to like put yourself sitting at their desk in their chair and imagine you've taken on their world order. And that really helps to get out of your own assumptions around or tailoring things that just would work for you versus what will really need to work for them. Then think about how frequently you need to be communicating with them in order to achieve what you're trying to accomplish, how personalized it needs to be, and what the process is. Is it a working process? Is it a more of a one-way communication process? What is it that you're looking to do? So I would love for you all to move through 1 through 5 for your priority audience quickly. And I'm going to give you the equivalent of about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to put a timer up on the screen so you'll see that and so you'll know what the countdown is. And use this time well because you have this moment to be thinking about this. And once you hang up the phone at 2:30, I'm pretty sure you won't be thinking about this again for a little bit of time. So use this time well. Any questions on how this tool works or how this kind of matrix works? Great. Okay. So I'm going to put up a timer here, if I can get to it. So put yourself on mute if you're not already on mute. And know that we're going to actually do a round robin. We're going to report back to one another so we can be learning and hearing from one another. And I'll be kind of asking people from each who are of the same site to speak right after one another. So we're kind of collecting some of the thinking together. So with that, I'm going to put myself on mute as well. But if you have any questions, I'll be here and I can unmute myself and I'd be happy to answer. Sound good? Okay, great. All right, folks, it's getting close to time.
I'm going to unmute you.
Oh. Great. Ooh, let's see, I got to turn that off. All right. How did everybody do? That is actually, I'm actually going to begin asking you more directly. Thumbs up for people who are feeling okay, but I guess there's not that many videos, huh?
Yeah, are we on?
Hold on.
Yeah,
We're on.
yep, I'm seeing some up, middle, up, down, right? Got it. All right. Well, great. I mean, part of it is to practice and to get your brain thinking in new ways about how you think about your communications and what you're trying to do. What I would love to do is actually go around by site and do a quick, I'm actually going to time us so we can hear from everybody to do a really high level of a quick synopsis of what you're trying to accomplish. So based on the exercise that you just did, who your primary audience is, and then if you had secondary audiences that are really essential, then we can mention those quickly. What do you need them to do? And then a couple of points around how to empathize with them. Likely there's a lot of information that you could harvest there, but just a couple of top points. And that's going to help. And then if you already had a idea of frequency or format, so take a second to look at what you've done. Imagine being able to share it succinctly with the group, and that acknowledge that I'm going to be kind of trying to take notes fairly quickly in order to capture this here too. Let's get started with, let's start from the bottom up. Is there anybody from Riverside on the call? No? And obviously you'll need to take yourself off of mute, and Sue, if you could just help us if you know that somebody from Riverside is on.
Yeah, I don't think that they are, but I did just get a note from Gina, and she doesn't have audio, but she wants to send info to me, which is fine. And Gina, you can also put it in your chat box as well, which might be, or you could, like if you typed it up, you could copy it and paste it into the chat box. Either way.
Great. Okay, well then Tiffany, you're on. You had thumbs up, thumbs down, middle world. Say more.
Yeah, so I have a few audiences. I didn't really prioritize them because I just
Let's first start with what you're trying to accomplish. That's essential.
Oh, I didn't even do that part.
That's key. Okay, so not to call you out, but right, like if you're not clear about what you're trying to accomplish, that is the.
I can tell you right now. I just didn't put it on my list because it was in black. It wasn't in one of these fancy colors.
Ah, okay, good to know. Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to accomplish systems change in our city that will, I guess, create the environments for all children and families to thrive in Long Beach. But we're really focusing in on the method of doing that is through some massive systems change. That would be co-designed with families.
Okay, great.
So for audiences, I have a steering committee. We also have a design team, and they're kind of a similar audience. Then there's also what I called resource allocation decision makers. So that could be like elected officials, our city manager, funders, the school district, and then families, of course, is an audience. Then I didn't really prioritize those. So of my steering committee and design team, what I need from them and what I need them to do is attend meetings, contribute brain power and resources, and be open to changing systems. And I think my design team is very open to that. My steering committee is at the table, and I think they're open and they say they're ready, but I feel like when when push comes to shove, that might be a different conversation when you see that a change is required of you. And I want them to feel excited and engaged in this process. So for empathizing, I think what motivates them, all of them, is that they want to see healthy children and families in our community, and they're very passionate about that. They all work in the early child space. I think they would be receptive to sort of how does this action or change help my organization or help my specific clients. I think they're reluctant if that change might take resources from them as an individual organization and put it towards maybe a collective pot. I think there could be some resistance there. And there's definitely resistance to not duplicating meetings and efforts that are already happening. They do not have a lot of free time. And then I kind of went out and I built number 3 and number 4 for all my audiences, but I didn't do 5 and 6 because I was like, I don't really know the answer to 5 and 6. I need to think about that more. So for my electeds and decision makers, city manager, funders, schools, I really need them to be open to change and really willing to change their own systems, which is uncomfortable. I need them to see the long-term benefit that might not be realized until after their elected term, which is very challenging when it comes even to our school district, because our superintendent is an elected official. And then I don't really know I think I might have to break that audience into like electeds and city manager and then funders. Like there's like a Venn diagram. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes they don't.
Yep.
So I might need to break that one up a bit more because I'm not sure what motivates them. This might have to dive down into a more individual level than a position. And then for families, I want families to contribute their ideas, to identify the needs that they have as content experts who have this lived experience. And I really want them to demand change, which means they may have to attend meetings or operate in a system that isn't designed for them right now, and other ways that they can demand change, such as, voting if it comes down to that. But and part of it is thinking about like, how do we empower the families that have some of the greatest needs that aren't comfortable or familiar with accessing our systems of decision-making and governance. And maybe we want to change those systems, but before we change them, there has to be a way. I need to find a way to get those families at the table.
Great. I'm going to stop you there just so we have time to hear from everyone, but that was great. And it was a great example of immediately identifying multiple audiences that all need to be met in different ways, and you're asking different things of them. I would even argue that within your steering committee and your design teams, that because they actually sit in different types of organizations, that you'd even want to be thinking explicitly about what each member needs, even if you're not sending out a distinct communication for each. You'd want to be really thoughtful about really understanding what their motivations and whatnot are, to then be able to tailor and identify the best frequency, the format, all of that. You'll be able to harvest more information, have a better strategy about how to speak with them if you actually break them down into individual people or organizations rather than lumping them all into the same.
Okay.
Okay, so that was great. And I need everybody to move a little bit more quickly because of limited time. I want you to identify just one audience to talk us through. Great that if you have multiple, go ahead and tell us if you've thought about more than one audience, but then just then just verbalize one audience. So anybody, thank you so much, Tiffany, by the way. That was great.
And Ginger, I did send to you Sacramento's.
Okay.
She sent it to me, and I don't know if you want me to read it or if you just want to look at it and copy and paste it, whatever is easiest for you.
Let's go up the list. Is there anybody from Fresno County on the call?
There is not. But Patty Humboldt, Patty is on.
Great. So, oh, I was going up, up this list. So Fresno,
Oh,
and
sorry.
then, so Sacramento.
So that's the one I just sent to you.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull that up, and I can pull it up on my screen.
Okay.
So,
great.
Gina, I'll just see, I'll share what's here. So your priority audiences are residents. Oh, let's see if you put up here, community-driven, you're trying to accomplish community-driven solutions, okay? Your priority audience is residents. You need their input and engagement. Other audiences include policymakers, city officials, clinic and health plans, community-based programs. Great, so I know that all of you all are working with lots of different distinct audiences. So looking at your priority audience, residents, you're looking for community input and engagement. For empathizing with them, want to be heard and see things improve. They want better health outcomes for their families and community. They may have a lack of trust with others not following through, and a lack of time to engage. Right, so these are the types of things that then would help to inform format and frequency. And what I'll just flag, I know this was all really quick, is to, when you actually think about particular milestones, it helps you get more explicit about the type of input and engagement. If it's just general input and engagement, that doesn't help you tailor your communications with a clarity of that you really need input on what, and you really need engagement on what. So I'm sure, I know Gina, you can't speak for yourself, and it's not meant to be as a criticism, it's kind of it's meant to be a teaching moment to think about that this idea of what you're trying to accomplish at this big scale is only helpful just on a general level. It's going to be a lot more helpful if you dive more deeply into immediate milestones, or breaking that down into smaller parts, and then figuring out what is that first step, what's that second step. That might be related to a decision-making process. It might be related to a budgetary process, right? That's going to be able to support you getting clearer about this, and then that also is what helps you to think about format, frequency, etc. So that's great, fantastic. All right.
Can I just, so she had also just put in the chat, we didn't get to number 5 and 6, and that's where they're really struggling, and they want to research the best methods.
Great.
And how best to get to the audiences. So
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I would say getting clear actually about what kind of input you're looking for, how frequently you need that input, right? So breaking down the bigger accomplishment into real tangible milestones actually will help you then do the research you need about form and frequency and things like that. So they're all mutually supportive of getting clearer across all of these elements. Great. Okay, is there anybody else from Sacramento? I think there are a couple of other people on the line from Sacramento. Is there anybody else who wants to speak up? I'm taking that as a no, unless, Sue, you see anybody piping in from on the chat box?
I do not.
Okay, great. Then Napa, is Eva still on the line? Yes. Eva, we can't hear you if you're speaking.
Yeah, Eva, are you, oh, she doesn't have audio either. Oh, no.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Eva, feel free to send your document to Sue if you want to take a look at it together, or we'll jump to somebody else in the meantime. Anybody here from Lake County?
I don't think anybody is on from Lake.
Okay. Okay. Now we're to Humboldt. Patty, we'd love to hear from you. Can you hear us? I mean, can we hear you?
Hi, I can hear you. We identified, first of all, what we're trying to accomplish. What we're trying to accomplish in terms of our communication efforts are widespread support for the ACH from the community. Our priority audience for now are community stakeholders across different sectors. So just as an example, from healthcare field, early childhood education, behavioral health providers, social workers, and the criminal justice system. For step number 3, we would like them to support the ACH by aligning their activities with ACH objectives and priorities. We would like them to feel motivated to act, is what I wrote for what I would like them to feel is motivation and desire to act. For step 4, I believe that community stakeholders are more motivated by action. They might be reluctant to align with the ACH because it would involve, another framework, another table they would have to be involved in. And these are folks that don't have a lot of time. Human capital is kind of scarce here in Humboldt County, which is this small rural community. What we've identified as the way they like to receive information is in a short and concise manner. So bullet points, just the information that they need that has information that's relevant to them. Am I going too fast?
No, that's great. That's great. That's great. Thank you so much, Patty. That's really helpful. And I love that you said what we've already identified is that they prefer short, concise bullet points. That tells me that you've gotten some of that feedback, and that's either because you specifically requested it or they gave it to you because they needed it a different way. How did you get that feedback?
We have a partnerships and communication work group that just recently launched, where we spoke about some of the different ways we might improve the communication flow between stakeholders.
Great.
And I also, as I was listening to you speak earlier, it occurred to me that the information has to be highly personalized to each sector because they have different priorities and different funders and different outcome measures. Yep. So in order to make it most relevant to them, we have to create material that's specific to each sector, but also highlighting the importance of why they all need to work together. Great.
Bingo. I'm so glad you said that, Patty, because that's what I was thinking when you said, we have all these multiple stakeholder groups, and I know enough about how you all are doing how this is that you're working across many different sectors, and that to your exact point, you made it so perfectly, which is that actually breaking it down into who, you shared a list, there are at least 6 or 7, but that might even be, there might be more. Right. And do kind of an analysis, even if you did the equivalent of a 30-minute analysis. I'm not even talking about a huge research project. If you could do more, great. But even spending 30 minutes to write down, okay, here are these 7 different sectors as, using this tool. What do we need them to do? Each of them might have the big thing is we need them to act different. We need to have them do this the ACH way or whatever, right? Sure, that's generic, but then identifying, well, what is it they're doing now and what do you need them to do things differently? It's going to be distinct for each group of people, right? Or each organizational infrastructure. And that empathizing too with, that some of those departments may have literally 2 people in them because you're in a sparse, place with sparse human capital. And some may have, 25. And so they're going to be able to have different capacity and bandwidths, or people who are at different levels of the decision-making chain are going to be able to have more, capacity to be able to make decisions and others, et cetera. So that was perfectly put. I think that will really serve your partnerships team to be breaking those audiences down. That's great.
Yeah, I think sharing this tool with the work group, I think would be a really great tool for us. So thank you.
Great, fantastic. Great, anybody from San Gabriel Valley? Sue, any
they're not on an LAUSD. I just sent to you Napa's from Eva.
Okay.
So I sent that along to you.
Great, I'm opening that up. Thanks, Eva. Let me pull it up now. Great. Great. Okay, so let's see here. Let's see. What are we trying to accomplish? Publish cancer report that focuses on community and individual prevention strategies. Great. What I will go ahead and say about this is nice because it's distinct. It's probably not the only thing the ACH is trying to do. It's something very specific. So this is a good suggestion to think about using a tool like this, both to think about all the kind of the big picture, but then diving down into something more specific. So your priority audience is residents. You want them to read the report, follow the suggested prevention strategies, become more active, and to promote physical and healthy behaviors, right? So these are very clear. That's, it's a lot that you're asking of them, right? So I can already imagine, you know, it's not just sending one email out to them to say, hey, here's the new report, that there's a lot here that you're asking of folks. Empathizing, concern for families' health, for their family's health, trust in the report, know that there are factors that they at the individual and community can modify to prevent cancer. That's the receptivity, right? Why they might be reluctant is that it's daunting and fear. They're gonna want it to be short, concise, interactive, and they have very minimal time. It's great. Best format and frequency. So you're thinking about a large audience size, one way, meaning you're not going to be expecting any kind of response or direct action from that email that would be coming back to you. Infrequent but consistent. Great. So again, this is more tactical and tangible because what you're trying to accomplish is more specific. And so this is a great example of how you could imagine breaking things down into milestones and getting really clear about how you can accomplish that more clearly. So this is a great one to end on. I would love for people to take themselves off of mute if they want to share, you know, thinking about this in this way, can you imagine this being helpful going back into your working groups or into how you're thinking about your ACHs? And somebody could actually say something in the chat function and Sue can be our translator.
Yeah.
Anything coming up, Sue?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Hi, this is Patty again.
Hi, Patty.
I just want to say that I think it's always really helpful to have things laid out in steps that are easily digestible. So I think that this process will resonate with our work group in particular because, you know, we've only had one meeting so far, and in our meeting we talked about several, you know, different aspects of communication that we'd like to address, but, you know, we're thinking we're not quite sure. We don't have a refined vision statement quite yet, so that is holding us back from having really a message we want to communicate. So now that we've massaged a vision statement and we're getting ready for our next meeting, so now that we have that prepared, that I think sets us up well to implement the use of a tool like this. So that, yeah, that just, I feel like it's really helpful in that regard. It's always nice to have things laid out in a simple 1 through 6. That guys are thinking, essentially.
Great, wonderful, wonderful. Others where this will be helpful, or that you're feeling challenged. I don't need this to be it would be helpful to know if this isn't helpful, or if there's something else that would be more helpful to support you, or there's things in addition to something than this.
I wondered, Ginger, it seems like, you know, because, you know, we're offering to folks one-on-one conversations.
Yep.
Because there's a collective, right, across all of your sites. What's the joint message? Because I think there's a lot of power in that, and then the individual. I think, you know, you providing prompts for them to get clarity, like if you say it's X and you're saying, but is that really what you're trying to do to help people in that way, would probably, I think I'm imagining, will be really helpful.
In the one-on-ones.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So we're about to close, and please know, well, first, you know, this is really key, is coming back to the bigger picture about, you know, some of the things that you all shared today. And again, this was practice, it's muscle building. You shared you want to get here, you know, kind of a new way of doing things, so that children and families can thrive in your community. But breaking it down into these smaller component parts, particularly if you're working with multiple stakeholders, likely, you know, you've really got to get a bunch of people on board here to even be willing to take this journey, right? So that if you haven't even moved them effectively yet to the first step, then focusing on what's the gap between here and here is really essential, because it kind of doesn't matter if you're wanting to get here if you can't even kind of get them to come to the table. Most of them are coming to the table, but they may still be reluctant. So what is it that could really then help invite them to this next piece, right? So you're thinking about both communications, but your communications are only as effective as your strategy in thinking about how are you going to move the ball from here to here. And this, everybody has a hard time with. I mean, this is part of ongoing strategic planning. So it's not that to say that somebody should have a list and the perfect thing all dialed in, but it's going to help you to break this down into smaller parts for your communications to be more directive. Then just so you know, please share this tool with your team. Also this, I know both a recording as well as the slide deck will be available to you all to circulate. And that I encourage you to be mapping out your communication needs, that, you know, along that pathway you have multiple stakeholders, multiple target audiences, and that you may very well have different you will undoubtedly, actually not just may very well, you have a different means to be communicating with different folks. So working groups versus community, you know, community writ large, families in general is going to be really different. And then to say that part of the work that we have laid out is one-on-ones. And I think that we're going to be proactively setting these up with you all. I think in some of the other cases, it's been optional. It of course is optional in the sense if you refuse, then that's fine. But we will actually be proactively trying to set these meetings up with you so that we can help meet you where you are. And that another thing that I'll be working on is refining the talking points for the ACH as a whole, based on what I've been hearing today, that again will not be tailored specifically to your site yet, but that they will be a better foundational building block than what's been circulated to date. And that can likely be a nice jumpstart to some of the work that you all are doing in your unique sites. So with that, I'll just ask if there are any final questions. I would love in the chat box, and so Sue, I'll ask you for be the translator. For some reason, I don't know why I can't see the chat box, but everybody take a minute to share one or two words about how they're feeling about taking this tool into their next steps within their sites. And then Sue, I'll have you read them out.
Okay, great, I can do that.
Okay.
Tiffany.
I like it. I wish we did it earlier. Me too, Tiffany. This is an example of pivoting. Saw the need, like stop, okay.
Anyone else? Everybody's so shy in the chat box. Maybe people.
I know. I feel more equipped. Yay. Go, Patty.
Great. Any last words of somebody out there? Put a couple words in your chat box.
I feel like there is work to do.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, great. Thanks everyone so much. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with each of you all individually or kind of by a site basis, because I'm happy to speak with more than one person when we get together. And please also send any additional questions or whatnot. You can send them directly to me. They're in this. I have my email here, or directly just to in the meantime. So thank you all so much. I know you all have more work to do today, and we'll be in touch.
Great. Thank you so much, Ginger. And thanks, folks. And I'll be posting the slides and the recording and the handout on the webpage.
Thank you, Ginger and Sue.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.